Learning your major and minor chords is critical because you're going to be playing them all the time. So today I'm going to show you the easy way to learn these chords and the theory behind them. The secret to learning chords as fast as possible is learning them in groups. And the first group are the white key major chords. C major, C, E, G, F major made of the notes F, A, C, and G major made of the notes G, B, D. And if you want to remember that, you can remember it as crocodiles fight gorillas. Next are the white, black, white chords made of D major, made of the notes D, F sharp, A, E major, made of the notes E, G sharp, B, and then A major, made of the notes A, C sharp, E. And if you want to remember D, E, A really easily, I remember it as Drug Enforcement Administration. And the opposite of those chords are the black, white, black chords, with D flat being the first one, D flat, F, A flat. The next one is E flat major with E flat, G, B flat. And then the last one is A flat major, made of the notes A flat, C, E flat. Now remember the last one we did was DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. This is the same thing, just putting flat in front of it first and making sure that you have the pattern black, white, black. Okay, now this one's all by its lonesome. It is the all black chord and it's just F sharp major, or I should play with my left hand, made up of the notes F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. The last two in the majors are twins of each other. One is B major and it is a white, black, black chord made up of the notes B, D sharp, F sharp, and its twin brother is the opposite of that, B flat major, which is made up of B flat, D, F. So this one was white, black, black with B major. B flat major is black, white, white. And we are going to practice these further on in the lesson, but I want to talk about minor chords a little bit first, because you can transform any major key into a minor key with one key difference. That is, you play the major chord, so C major. Remember, that's our white key major chord. And then we lower the middle note here by what they call a semitone or a half step, a lot of us call it. And that transforms it into minor already. So guess what? You already have your minor chords kind of learned, right? Because you can go through, okay, white key major chords, C, F, G, and then go through, okay, what are the minor versions of each of those? C minor, F minor, and remember, I'm just lowering that middle note to G minor. Now we're going to deep dive into the theory of these chords so that you understand playing them a lot better. You can use them in more situations, and you can actually play a whole bunch of different chords. Let me show you. Okay, here's the formula of a major triad. By the way, these are all called triads. They're 3-note chords, like a triceratops has 3 horns, a triangle has 3 angles, right? So what you do is to play a major chord, you play the first note first, obviously. Let's say E flat, right? And then from there, not including that note, you count up 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, and then you count up another 1, 2, 3 from there. So the formula is you play the note, you go up 4, and then 3 half steps from there. So 4 and then 3. Remember, you don't count the first note. That messes everybody up. So let's do this really quick. Play, without remembering all the stuff I taught you, play a B major chord. So you play B, you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then from there, not including that note, you go 1, 2, 3. Now remember what I told you earlier about minor chords. What would a minor chord be in terms of the formula? Would it be 3 and 3? Well, let's check. So let's play C, and we're going to go up and see. Remember, our next note is going to be E flat. So you're going to go up 1, 2, 3 that time. But let's see what happens here. How many do we have to go up here? 1, 2, 3, 4 this time. So last time the formula was 4 and then 3. This time it's 3 and then 4. The reason the second one is 4 instead of 3 is that we've moved this one down 1. So to make it back to the G, we actually have to go up 4 half steps now. So next I want to show you about enharmonic equivalence, because this can throw you off if you're not prepared. So we have our piano keyboard layout, and say I play this F sharp here. Well, would you believe that this F sharp has more than one name to it? Well, you could if you knew that, say we're starting from G and we flatted it. You're like, oh my goodness, G flat and F sharp are the exact same note, and they call that enharmonic equivalence. And you got to be careful, because if you're playing an F sharp major scale that has 6 sharps, but if you play a G flat major scale that has 6 flats, and it all depends on how you look at it, right? You're doing the F sharp major scale, the first 3 notes are F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, but in G flat major, it's G flat, A flat, B flat, because we're coming from different notes. It's especially going to be a problem sometimes around B and C. Sometimes, you know, a music theory or in the piece, they'll tell you to play a B sharp. Well, on the piano, it looks just like a C. So just keep in mind that that's a thing. I'm still going to explain how to exactly practice all this stuff to get the most out of it. But first, we still have to talk about chord inversions, because chords, believe it or not, can appear in what we call root position, meaning that the root of the chord is on the bottom. And that's all the chords we've been playing so far. So when I said the white key major chords, C, F, G, the C, the F, and the G were on the bottom of each of those chords, and that is root position. The root of the chord is on the bottom. But let's do this. Let me play this, say, G major chord up here in my right hand, G, B, D. Now, what did I do? Did I change the chord? Well, I did, right? I mean, you can see that I changed it. But did I really change it? Well, remember, the notes are G, B, D, and we still have those notes, G, B, D. They're just in a different order. And we call that a chord inversion. This is very important. You're going to see this all the time in your music. So you have root position. What you do to put it in an inversion is you take out the bottom note, you move it up an octave, and you play the rest of the notes where they were. And eventually you want to be able to get really fast with your inversions. But root position, first inversion, we're going to do the same thing. We're taking out the bottom note, moving it up an octave, second inversion. Now, why isn't there a third inversion? Well, if you do it one more time, we're actually back to root position. Here, I brought up a visual for us showing the inversions of C major. Here you got the root on the bottom. Then you got first inversion over here. One thing I brought this up for, and the reason I did, is that you can visually see if it's root position, first inversion, and second inversion. And look at the pattern. What do you think it'll be? Well, root position always looks like a stacked snowman, right? Especially if it's all within one clef. Hint, hint, we're going to talk about multiple clefs here in a second. But if it's all within, say, treble clef, they're going to look like a stacked snowman, okay? When you have first inversion, there's going to be a gap towards the beginning of the chord. You can see that both in my fingers on the piano and right here, right? And then second inversion has a gap towards the bottom of the chord between the first 2 notes. And you can see that both in my hand, and you can also see it, the gap right there. So always look for the gap. That will tell you what inversion that you are in. Then lastly, with this diagram, it's showing you that the root was on the bottom. It's on top with first inversion. You might want to memorize this. And then with second inversion, it's in the middle. And that's important to memorize, because if you see a lot of these chords and you're thinking, oh, these are G chords, they are not. They are not E chords either. They're C chords. And why is that? Well, second inversion and the root is in the middle. Now, oftentimes, chords are written between 2 clefs at the same time. We got treble clef up top, bass clef on the bottom. Now, let's see how they deal with chords. Now, they did write in all the letters here for us. This is just a website I found. But let's take a look at what we have here, right? So the first one says F, and if it's a capital F and nothing else is written, that means F major. We'll talk about this in a minute, right? So you're going to play the notes they have here. Now, I'm going to play the next one that's circled here. This is very important, why I wanted to bring this up. Sometimes you'll have these things called slash chords, where it'll say C/E. So you may be thinking, oh, is this C major? Is this E major? What gives? Well, I can tell you right now that it's C major. So the first thing before the slash is the primary chord. And what it's telling you is that E is in the bass, like that. Now, believe it or not, this is a first inversion chord, and you're thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. I see the snowman right there. Remember what I said a few minutes ago, and I said hint, hint, is that when you look at chords all within one clef, so if you're just looking in treble clef, that would be a C major chord in root position. However, they put what note down on the bottom? They put the E on the bottom, right? And if you really remember what I said in the beginning, it all depends on what note is in the bass. So when you have C major, remember the root is in the bass. So if I had the root down here, that would be root position, okay? If I put an E here, and see that changes the sound to a first inversion chord, because remember now the third of the chord is on the bottom and the root is on the top. Remember the diagram I showed you a minute ago? Remember to study that because that'll show you where these notes will fall. So this is a first inversion chord. But if you just want to read it real quick, C/E, you play C major up top and you put the E on the bottom. That's it. D, and notice how next one says D and then a little M next to it. That stands for D minor. And is that in some kind of inversion? The answer is no, it's not. It's in a root position because the D's on the bottom. What about this next chord, F/C? Ooh, that has a nice sound to it. That is in an inversion. First we see the slash chord, right? F/C. C is going to be on the bottom. And they actually do invert it this time in the right hand. And sure enough, that is second inversion, because this would be first inversion, root position, first. Actually, this brings me to an interesting point. A lot of people will call this first one first inversion, like I did. Don't do that. That's root position. And then you start with first inversion, second inversion, and that is what we have there. And then question, where is the root of this chord? Think about what I said a minute ago. But it's really right there. It's F, right? When you have a slash chord, the first thing that appears is the primary chord that it's based on, so F major. And then we're just finishing out this example with two G major chords just like that. But if we just took the treble clef of this G major chord, B, D, G, try to figure this out. What inversion is that chord? If you know, leave it in the comments or write it down for your own personal enjoyment. I'm going to let you figure that out. If you can't figure this out, you need to watch the whole lesson again. So these are like the little quiz things I like to give you throughout. But there's more to tackle here. There are more chords than just major and minor, actually. And I want to introduce you to these chords today because it's really more stuff that you have to know, right? So why not just teach it to you now, since we've been talking about all this chord theory? Well, there's major chords, there's minor chords, and guess what? There's diminished chords. And to play a diminished chord on any note, what you do is you play the note, C, or any note, whatever it is, and then you go up 3 half steps, not including this one, remember that. You go 1, 2, 3, and from this one, not including it, you go up 3 more, just like that. Or let's think about it this way. You're in major and you want to go into minor, you lower that third note. But if you want to put it into a diminished chord, like so we have major, you lower the third and what we call the fifth note up there. And if you're wondering why I'm calling this third and fifth instead of second and third, I should explain that. It's all about the note's relation to the root, right? So here's the root. And this is a third because it's 1, 2, 3 notes away. And this is a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes away. This time you are counting the starting note. It can be a little kind of weird, and it really helps to know your scales because you're actually going up 5 notes in that scale. So your root is there, your third is lowered, and your fifth is lowered. Let's try to play a few more diminished chords. How about B diminished? We're going to play it with the bass clef, or the left hand. I'm going to play B. Right? And then what do? You go 1, a 2, a 3, If you ever watch Sesame Street, you know where that's from. And you go 1, 2, 3, half steps, I'm going to do that in every video until you guys beg me not to. But anyway, there is B diminished. Let's try one on your own. How about A flat diminished? This one's going to be kind of tough, but do your best. I'll give you a 5. And then you can pause if you need to. 4, a 3, a 2, 1. A flat diminished is A flat. Then you go 1, 2, 3. And then you go up 1, 2, 3. Like that. Now, I'm glad I brought this up because this is where enharmonic equivalents come into play. So remember, say we're playing an A flat major chord, right? And I told you that to transform a major chord into diminished, you do what? You lower the third which is the next note up, and the 5th, which is the top note, right, if you're in root position. So let's play an A flat major chord, make it easy. So A flat, C, E flat. If I counted 4 and then 3, it would be there. And then what you do is you lower, we're going to lower the top note first. Actually, we can lower either one. We're going to lower the middle note, which is the 3rd, and the top one. Now, looking at these 3 notes, I'm just going to play them with that fingering. It's a little easier to see. It's A flat, and then 2 notes here. Now you may be saying, oh, it's A flat, B, C. No, it's not. And this is where enharmonic equivalence, what I told you about earlier, really comes into play. I'm so glad I told you about that because it's really A flat. Remember, the original notes are A flat, C, E flat. That's the original chord we're basing this off of, the major chord, right? And we're taking the C and lowering it a half step. That's our first step. It's not a B, it's actually a C flat because C was the original note we're coming from. Remember I said it's all about where you're coming from, whether it's, G flat or F sharp. In this case, it's C flat because we're moving the C down 1 to C flat. And this note right here was E flat, but now it's E double flat. Yes, that is a thing. E double flat is a thing. So an A flat diminished chord is made up of the notes A flat, C flat, and yes, E double flat, which literally looks like a double flat. You know what? I still have to teach you about seventh chords, because those are used in jazz and all sorts of music genre, and even in classical a little bit. So you have to know at least what these are. Are you ready? Well, a seventh chord. Do you think, remember, a triad, let's think about this logically. You're going to think this is funny, maybe. Let's think about this logically. A triad has 3 notes, right? And you may be saying, okay, well, a seventh chord is going to have 7 notes. No, it does not. I know, it's so weird. So a triad has 3 notes, but a seventh chord has 4 notes. And let me show you why. Well, it all depends, and I'm not sure why they didn't keep the naming convention the same. But with seventh chords, the 7th, this note, is 7 notes above the root. So remember when I was saying earlier, we have root, 3rd, 5th. Well, guess what? We got 7th now. So really what we're doing is we're taking the chords we were learning before, the major chords, and we are adding an extra note to it. So let's talk about the first type, which is a major 7th chord. This is very easy. You play a major chord, boom. Our white key major chords. And then what you do is you play an octave above where you started, so C, and you lower that note a half step, and that gives you a major 7th chord, and perfectly every time, right? So let's do G major 7th. You play G, B, D, white key major chord. You play the G up top, and you lower it just a half step, and boom, G major 7th chord. I also want to mention that major 7th chords can appear as they'll either write out MAJ7 or triangle 7. I know it's kind of weird, but just to let you know, you play the dominant 7th like we just played, C, E, G, B flat, right? And all you got to do is make the bottom chord minor, and that's a minor 7th. It actually has a very pleasing type of sound, and I'm just doubling it here with both chords. In fact, you can, integrate that in your practice. If you want to practice them both hands at the same time, you can do that. I just tried to do one hand at a time to alleviate confusion. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I practice all this stuff that you taught us today? So here it goes. On a sheet of paper, write white key major chords and write C major, F major, and G major. And you can even write out what 3 notes make up each of those. But I'd write white key majors, and then I'd write C, F, G. Then I'd write white, black, white underneath that. And I'd write D, E, A. Remember, Drug Enforcement Administration. And then the opposite of those were E flat, A flat, which is Drug Enforcement Administration just flatted. It's kind of the opposite of those. Then remember, and those are called black, white, black chords, by the way. So white, excuse me, it's all whites, and then it's white, white, and black, black are those ones. Now, remember I said there was all three black keys, and that is just the F sharp, or it could be called G flat major chord. Let's call it F sharp major for now. And then remember the two twins are B major, B, D sharp, F sharp, and B flat major, B flat, D, F. And I would just call that, I don't know, I just like to call them the twins because that helps me remember them. They're the only two that are like that, and they're both opposite of each other. And that just helps me remember. So write all that down, and what I want you to do is every time you practice, I want you to spend 5 minutes, and I want you to go, okay, white key major chords. And I want to see, can you play them fast? Can you play them accurately? If they sound like this, you know you didn't play it right because they should sound major, which is a bright and happy type of sound. And then you go through each one. D, E, A, D flat, E flat, A flat, F sharp, and then B and B flat, and go through those, practice those every single day, write it down on a sheet of paper, and before you know it, you will have all these mastered. And by the way, once you learn all the majors, and you watch this video a couple more times, remember all the stuff I said, you can transform them into minors. You know, very easily. You can transform them into the dominant seventh chords. You know, just that easy. You can transform them into diminished chords. Oh, it sounds lovely, doesn't it? And I actually wrote this practice thing down. If you just want to copy this, you know, the white keys, the white, black, white, so on and so forth, write that down and make that part of your practice. All right, students, I'm going to tell you where to go from here. But first, I want to know, do you want a full lesson on seventh chords? I could have gone into a lot more detail about them. Let me know in the comments, and if I get enough comments, I will make a seventh chords video. But now I got to tell you where to go from here, because this learning these chords and memorizing them this way is just a very small part of what you need to know to become a well-rounded musician. Another thing you need is learning all of your key signatures and the layout of the keys on the piano. Well, I highly recommend you check out this lesson next. It's about the circle of fifths, and it's going to give you everything you need to know. It's been your piano teacher, Tim, and I'll see you next time.